Hi, I'm John Freitag. I'm with All American Hospice, and I'm here today with Mindy Haggerty and Brian Quigley. They're senior real estate specialists with Keller Williams. And I usually like to start off the interviews with how'd you get into senior work with seniors? How'd you get into being a senior real estate specialist? So Brian, you want to start? All right, Mindy,
Mindy,
start
I'll
off.
start.
How'd you come about to working with seniors?
So it kind of happened organically. I became a realtor about 4.5 years ago, and my very first client was an 88-year-old woman who wanted to move out of her 55 and plus community because she didn't feel like she was old enough to be there. And she really wanted to be near her daughter, and we actually became best friends. So we still have lunch and tea. As soon as COVID's over, we'll be back to doing that. And I just realized at that moment she had a daughter of her own, but how much help she really needed, moving and just support. And I really enjoyed the relationship. And then that just seemed to be what I attracted or whatever. I met Brian and that was his focus. So I felt like I was always calling Brian, like, hey, can you help me with this? Do you have an elder care attorney? I need this, I need that. And so we teamed up, but I'll let him tell you his story and then I kind of just fit in there.
Yeah, so about 6 years ago, I re-entered the industry. I've had a license since '89, and I worked with my uncle, who at the time was 72, and he was maybe my second or third transaction back into the business 6 years ago. And he had lived in the house for 70 years. He basically moved there when he was 2. My grandparents owned it. So he needed to sell at 72 years old, downsize, and 70 years in the same house. And going through that process, I knew what we needed to do for him had to be times that population, thousands and thousands of people in the area needing that kind of help. So that's what kind of gave me that passion to say, well, if I can help him and help family members, and knowing what he needed and what has to happen, let's put this together in a package, in a model, and find the vendor partnerships, find the people who can help us help our clients.
Right. So what do seniors need when they're moving that's different than what a say a person who's in their 20s, 30s, 40s would need when they're moving?
I'll let you.
Well, the first thing is sometimes we ask the seniors, how long have you been in your home? And we might hear 55, 50, 60 years. So that equals a lot of stuff. Yeah. So I think that's the number one problem or hurdle. The first hurdle is what am I going to do with all of these things? I've picked a community. I'm in 3,000 square feet right now, and now I'm moving to 1,000 square feet. What do I do with all of it? And it can be overwhelming. So we come right in, hold the hand, like we're right there with you. We have vendor partners who, we work with, and we'll get in there and start cleaning the house out and start that process. I think that's one of the bigger issues.
Yeah, for sure. And Mindy's skill set, and we have a really good skill set fit. She's more the, what do you need? I can see that vision. I know you need to move this. I know you need this help downsizing. I know you need that piece of like hand holding. And so with our vendor partners, she's able to coordinate that right up until the move day in some cases, and has pitched in on moving day and helped the person get into a community. And I think my skill set is more looking at it like you've been in your home 50 years. So you maybe had 2-3 pages of paperwork back then, and who knows, who remembers? I don't remember 50 days ago. So 50 years ago is even harder. So I come in and help with that 13-page agreement of sale and that 6-page listing agreement and a property disclosure of 10 pages, and really walk through that. And both of us do that together, but I think we have a really great fit of how we help and who we help and when we help.
Right, so you identify what their needs are, and Mindy takes care of them, and you walk them through the paperwork and make sure that they understand what the transaction, entails. Do you feel like people are reluctant to ask for help when they need it? Like, are they able to identify what the problems are? I need to downsize, I need to get rid of my junk, or, do they ask you for help, or do you have to like sort of dig and investigate and see what they need and offer that? Like, how do you identify what direction to send them in, Mindy?
That's a good question. And I think everyone's different. There's some people who are moving, they're not in crisis. They thought about this early and they have already started downsizing, 5 years ago. And then there's other people who are moving, it's more of a crisis or more of an emergency, or they're, a widow and they do need more help and they don't really understand what's happening. Most recently, I had an elderly woman in Virginia who we moved, and that kind of happened with her. She had a condo. She didn't have a huge house, but it was getting towards, the end of the settlement period. And I realized like she thought she had it under control, but she didn't. But we were able just to come in gently. And we do have wonderful, helpers who will come in, and it's not a huge expense, and help pack. And I'm right there too. So it's not just like, oh, come handing you off to someone else. Like I've been in there packing, belongings and watching the cat and getting groceries and all that kind of thing. So it just depends on, on the client and what their need is. So, yeah. But I'm happy to, be there as much as possible or as little as possible.
Right. How long do you think most of your transactions last? I know when we bought a house, working with a realtor, I mean, we sort of became friends throughout the, the transaction, working with them for, I forget how long it was. It had to be at least a month, in the searching process. Then you got the, the closing and everything, and they're reassuring you on how everything's going and helping you get all the inspections in place. How long is your general transaction? Is it longer? Is it shorter? Does it depend on the circumstance?
I think it really depends on circumstances. We've had some that we've worked an entire year from the time we've met them. And a lot of times a senior will say, well, I'm 3 years out. And Zig Ziglar used to say, whatever they tell you, cut it in half, right? So if they've said 3 years, it actually does work out to be about a year and a half that we not only start the process, but finish the process in about a year and a half. But we've also had crisis situations where an elder care attorney will call us and say, husband passed away, the widow's having some issues, health issues, or issues that it's just not safe to be in the house anymore. That we can get done 60 days, 90 days, whatever speed they want to move at. Longer time is better because it's not quite as stressful, but it really could be a year and a half to as little as 35 days, 45 days.
Are most of your clients, are they going into a community or are they going into smaller houses? What do you see the most of?
Communities at this time. Yeah. I would say our average is 72 years old to 83 years old, and most are going to independent living. Okay. Some assisted living. We haven't really done a whole lot at the 55 and up level yet. We're focused mainly, and our model is built out really to help the 72 and up.
Okay. And do you work with all the different price ranges, like from, lower end houses that are rough to, $1 million homes?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Our range, I think, is what, 55,000 to 1.175 million sold. And we currently have 3 listings in the Rittenhouse. It's actually 2 listings, and they are 2 million and 4 million, or you can combine the 2 for 6 million. So yeah, it really, the price tag doesn't matter so much. It's really who needs help and what help do they need. And 80% of our listings are seniors. So it really comes back to that core group of vendor partnerships to help them get through.
Right. So a senior who's selling their house, who might be on the lower end of the spectrum, who's being approached by, some of those cash deals. How do you work with them? How do they benefit from working with you as opposed to just selling to, a flipper privately?
Well, so I think that's a good combination question, though, because to the point of how Mindy helps them with that process of downsizing and coordinating with the vendor partners to do so, then I would come in and say, well, if it is a cash out situation where it just needs so much work, we do have vendor partner relationships that will get them a better value than, say, a We Buy Houses, because we show comps and we show them what the real value of the house is. So I think we're probably a 20 to 30% higher net for them if they sell it in a cash out. And in a lot of cases, with the inventory being so low, we're able to sell it to an end user rather than a flipper, rather than a cash out. And then you're talking maybe 40, 50% more on a profit structure for the senior.
Right. So you have the seller's best interest in mind, whereas a cash out option, other guys might just be trying to move fast and just sell a bunch of houses quickly. You can, take your time with them and walk them through everything and hold their hand.
Exactly.
Exactly. And you don't always have to clear the house. We've had incidences too where we could get a senior into a community and they only take the belongings that they want, and we're still able to sell the house for the most amount of money with all the, stuff left in it. We can take care of that too.
Right.
So it's a win-win.
Yeah, and there's a great story there where down in the Fairmount section, they did leave about 5 pieces of furniture, including a piano. And this was a house that 6 months, a year ago, would have been a renovation special for sure, in a higher end area, $700,000 to $750,000 area. But the fellow who bought it is going to renovate it himself, has family support, both financially and for the renovation. And he said, leave the piano, I want that. And it's a 72-year-old piano that the seniors had, so they're thrilled. So instead of cleaning out those last 5 objects, which would have been another $1,500, maybe $2,000, he gets to keep them. And we got a really good price tag for our seniors, probably, again, at least 70% higher than the best flipper price.
Wow. And the guy probably shows off the piano to everyone who comes in. He's got this antique piano. That's great.
Exactly. The sellers were so delighted because I think it was a childhood gift to the husband, and now it stays with the house because it's hard to get rid of a piano.
Yeah.
And now this gets to stay where it belongs. So everybody was really happy about it. That's one of those great stories.
Yeah. It's amazing.
And they lived there since 1970.
And I don't want to go off track too much, but like you said, it's hard to get rid of a piano, and I've seen them on Craigslist. People can't give them away.
They give them away.
What else is there that you see in people's houses that you'd be surprised you can't get rid of?
Pool tables.
Pool tables, there.
Pianos, pool tables, and big touches.
Dining
rooms, touches, great fronts, curio cabinets, like all the things that the millennial plus buyer, so people who are maybe 55 and under, just don't want that stuff anymore.
Hummels. Nobody wants the Hummels.
Okay. And I mean, that's probably a topic we could probably do a whole episode on that stuff. But But yeah, I was just curious. That's neat. I never would have thought of that. Pool tables and okay. So if you need a pool table cheap, check Craigslist. People are giving them away. Great. So we were talking about COVID-19 before we started too.
Or check with us.
What's that? Would you take
or check with us if you need a pool table.
COVID-19, how's that affecting you guys?
So it's interesting. We're the only state in all 50 that have been deemed non-essential to date. Hopefully that'll change soon. So COVID-19 has prompted us to move in a direction of more technology for our seniors. And the good story is they're picking up and enjoying it and understanding it. And we have what's called Matterport technology. That's a visual tour of their home that we pay for, that we bring in a great photographer, Sean May Photography. They do all the work for Toll Brothers, for the Laurel in town. We were lucky enough to catch up with them and have them set that up for us. We had an 83-year-old and an 87-year-old sign all their docs on DocuSign. First time through, got it done. We're accomplished and happy with themselves. And so it's really retraining us to work virtually and still close deals. We have 4 closings within about 8 weeks during COVID, 6 weeks during COVID.
That's awesome. And I'm glad you're able to help walk them through everything. I know just closing on a house is stressful when there's not a global pandemic. I mean, to be having to use new technology for the DocuSigns that they're probably not interested or not knowledgeable in, and using all the different, the pictures and the virtual tours. That's amazing that you guys can walk them through it.
And even Zoom, like what we're doing here today, if an 82, 83, 87-year-old has some computer background, Zoom is one of the best, I think, platforms out there because we can meet like this and we can actually have them looking at the documents, whether we mailed it to them or whether they printed off it in PDF, and just kind of go through it. And it takes the same amount of time as if we drove to their home and sat across the kitchen table.
And these people...
We had a listing before COVID that actually went under contract. The seniors had moved out, but it was right during the beginning of COVID that it had to settle. And it's over an hour away. It was in West Grove, and it had 5 POAs. And I have to give us a pat on the back because that was challenging. And the seniors didn't DocuSign, and they didn't So, but we figured it out, and I went to closing for them on my own. It was me and a bottle of hand sanitizer in the closing room. So yeah, I guess what COVID has done is we're thinking out of the box, so we're just getting problems done a different way.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point you bring up. Like, so there's some silver linings. We're thinking outside of the box. We're trying to come up with new ideas, new technologies to get things done, because the world doesn't stop moving, right? There's still people still need to move out of their house. They might need to go in a community. Stuff still has to get done. So I'm glad that you guys are leading the way and helping people that way. So it's great. What do you think the future looks like in terms of real estate post-COVID? Do you think a lot of these technologies are going to stay the same, or do you think people are going to want to get back into the old way?
Well, I think you have both, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, definitely. I love this Matterport. I hope that we continue to use it, because as you and I were speaking before, some of the pictures are deceiving. So this is very real. DocuSign is great. It's funny, we never have to go to the office ever. They've figured out everything for us. So I think a lot of that will stick, and that, that's a positive. But we do look forward to, we like relationships and meeting our clients across the kitchen table. So I look forward to when that's happening again too.
Yeah. So take the best parts of both.
Yeah.
I really think that's the silver lining, or the gratitude of a pandemic, of a disaster, is that better practices come out of this. Time savers, maybe a little less stress in the long run for the senior, because if we can do things remotely, particularly with our seniors that go to community, they don't have to go to settlement. We can more or less go for them. They sign a deed packet, the money gets wire transferred to their account. So maybe half of the transaction doesn't have the stress of the physical being somewhere. They can be more comfortable in the community.
That's awesome. Well, thanks so much. Thanks for explaining things. I'm sure there's more that we could go into, but you guys answered a bunch of questions for me. Did you have anything else that you wanted to add before we hop off?
No, thank you. Just thank you so much for this. We really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thanks, John. We really appreciate your time. And it's great to have someone knowledgeable like you to pull questions and pull information out of us that ultimately helps shared clients and shared interests with our senior.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks again.
Glad to be a part of it. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Take care.